of room on my phone to do this. But yesterday, we lost a TV icon, TV legend. When you hear those were the days, and then there's Maud. The beans don't burn in the kitchen, the beans don't burn on the grill. Who do you think of? You think of Norman Lear. Norman Lear passed away yesterday at the age of 101. We've had many TV pioneers. We have Lucille Ball to thank for that, and also Ed Sullivan on the Toast of the Town, 1947. But nobody has brought TV closer together than Norman Lear. In March 1971, over 52 years ago, back in March, a show came on the air that changed the world. Boy, the way Glenn Miller played songs that made the hit parade. I'm talking about All in the Family. Of course, I was born in 1971. I caught the later years first, and I went back and I watched it. Same thing with Maud. And I was old enough to watch the Jeffersons when they came on. When Norman Lear, and of course he's done other shows, too many shows to name or mention, but when Norman Lear came on, you had television that would change the world. And not only by the world, but the television audience all over the world to have it made TV. They touched on taboo topics that weren't discussed at homes and schools, and the media at that time were afraid to touch on. And Norman Lear's shows made it okay. Go like, hey, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about this as a family or a work environment. He made it okay. I mean, there was certain words you could use on television at that time, like certain shows. They cannot be made today because of society and generation. But for people who were born, I would say between 63 and 71, knew when all these shows came on the air. And it made us, because everybody had like their own little problems, and when they had like their problems, it made them feel like they. But seeing shows, like I said, like All in the Family, Maud, I can go on and on and on. Those are the shows that come into mind. He did some other shows as well. Made them feel that they were not alone. And with everything that was going on at that time, baby boomers, you know what I'm talking about. My age bracket, you know what I'm talking about. At that time, it was an escape from the reality at that time. And as you know, the 70s was a great mess. Look up the 1970s, and I won't have to go into specifics. But he brought people together like nobody like in before, just like television in its infancy brought people together with wholesome entertainment. And then the late 60s came in, and to me that was the start of talking about topics that needed to be discussed on television. And some of the shows that were made in the 70s can still feel, and I feel, in my opinion, hold up today. The times may are changing, sure, but you're going to have that no matter what generation that you have. And it's a good teaching tool, that even though that they have like the shows back on, and sometimes you have to bleep the words, because the words you cannot say on television. Back then you could. Forget it, you cannot get away with that today. But it's a good teaching tool, because I feel that even though that it's 2023, almost going on 2024, that we need to learn about the past, are doomed to repeat it. And in my opinion, what has been going on the last few years reminds me of the 70s quite a bit. But like I said, the words that you could say back then, you cannot say now. But there's really not all a bad difference. 70s, we were going through a big, major thing that I won't go into discuss. Just Google the 1970s and what was going on. That way I won't have to go into specifics. And this decade alone, I would have to say between 2019 until now, it's just, and I'm 51 and a half years old. And I just feel like there's kind of like reminiscence of the 1970s going into the decade that we are now. Like from 2019 to 2023, and I'm sure 2024. But back then, TV was just brought, and I can say this because it is absolutely true. When it comes to like certain other, and it just like blows me away that in my lifetime, which is 51 and a half years, how television has grown. But in the time, there's little glitches to the past. But Norman Lear, what a great pioneer, and he turned 101. I think it was either July, and they had like a birthday party for him on TV last year, and it just like blew me away. Even with the people that did not watch the show originally when it came on the air, the people that grew up in my time, which I would have, like I said, between 64 and 71, no further than 72, grew up with these shows, and it was in a way, it was our way into the world. In my opinion, sure, we were taught by our ancestors and growing up, but our first teaching tool was actually the television. Sure, we had like toys and you go to school, and I'll get into that in a few seconds, but just like I imagine, and I thought about this yesterday, and I did not know, and I was thinking about Norman Lear a lot yesterday, and I didn't know that he passed until this morning, ironically enough. And I was imagining what the world would be like without Norman Lear. He just, and I hear the celebrities when they talk about Norman Lear with them, and how much they learned from the TV and by shows, and then encourage them to watch the news. And it just blew me away. And my education, thank God for television and news footage, because the stuff that I learned over my decades of life was taught either by my ancestors or documentary footage just to get an education, because a lot of it you couldn't touch with a 10-foot cattle prod. And I've been out of high school since 91. And so I thank God for Norman Lear. I thank God for the pioneers of TV and the camera. Because let me tell you, kids, learn by documentary footage. Don't be afraid to ask your ancestors, your grandparents, your grandparents, or your parents, or your brother, or your sister. That's where teachers can help. Do not get me wrong. I have nothing against teachers. I had some phenomenal teachers. But you really, really learn about the generatic period of that time. And I've talked to, they're no longer here, but I've talked to several of my ancestors and my parents and friends that I knew, because there were things that I wanted to learn and they wouldn't touch. And I won't say it here because I think it's still controversial to this day and whatnot. So, um, and whatnot, because I don't know if it's still going on or anything, but it's a very, very controversial topic and whatnot. So don't be afraid to even ask a teacher. They could probably tell you like the basics, but don't forget to talk to, or even a friend that's older than you, or an aunt or an uncle, or anything important or in a general. But like I said, and thank God we have like technology so that kids are for our children's children, or even future adults that are late teenagers now. Um, Thank God for technology so they get to see these shows. And I want to thank Norman Lear and the people that took a chance on Norman Lear. Thank you for bringing America together in the 1970s when it was chaotic. Same thing in the 80s, because he did so much other work, Norman Lear did. And to hear stories and tributes about Norman Lear while he was alive was just mind blowing. The history and the generations, even my mom and dad's generation, they grew up with like wholesome entertainment. And we talked about this a few months ago, and my mom and I talked privately about it. Over 20 years ago, we were talking about that. And it's just like amazing, because they were born right before television and its infancy, and even with radio. And they were just like telling me how technology is just bringing people together. And I just applaud the trailblazer of Norman Lear, and he will. There is no doubt about it that someone or a group of people in the future are going to look back at these shows and try to reboot it for like modern times, and they have, but they are okay. But to get into like the TV business and just be, or they could say like Norman Lear inspired me to like be a writer, um, or anything like whatever, Um, and I can say this now, but oh, just a Polynesian truck. Um, Norman Lear was one of the reasons why I developed a hobby for video and recording. It was Norman Lear. And I'm at that point in my life, I'm sharing a little bit, but not too much of my life. But it's just amazing how TV, even in the world full of chaos now, has brought us together. And with so much, how could I use this word carefully, sucky news in the world, we have like Nick at Night and Antenna TV to escape. And we still use the past for escapism today. Now that is legendary, and that is longevity. A lot of people might agree with me about Norman Lear. Norman Lear was a controversial person, and so am I. He changed everything. I feel that without All in the Family, we would not have Fat Albert. Without All in the Family, we will not have Chico and the Man. Without All in the Family, we would not have Maude. Without All in the Family, we would not have the Jeffersons. And so on, and so on, and so on. So, controversial people can be inspiring too. And I want to thank Norman Lear for giving me, even though I got your shows a little bit, I had to go backwards. Like I said, I had to watch All in the Family the later years before I could watch the youngers because, like I said, I was born in 71. And when I got old enough, I got to see the 70s shows. My God, what a wonderful world that we can live in. But for the people that saw the shows originally, like myself, and it is 52 years now, and they still got that longevity. Could you imagine what it would be like years and decades from now? This is a good topic of conversation. But I just wanted to come on and talk about Norman Lear. And on a side note, I'll probably will be going on live streams a little bit at night. Some things had popped up yesterday and continued into today. And I'm also going to be taking the 13th and the 19th. Well, everybody knows that already. But I'm going to be taking the 22nd off. I got too much on my plate as it is. So I just wanted to come on and give you that little update. But mostly, I just wanted to come on and talk about Norman Lear. And before I got too busy. But I also wanted to come on and show you the sky really, really quick. And this will be coming on today. But, boy, the way Glenn Miller played songs that made the hit parade. The beans don't burn in the kitchen. The beans don't burn on the grill. And then there's Maude. And then there's Maude. Thank you, Norman Lear. From a fan to all over the world that loved your shows, I'm Kara Knopf, signing off. Thank you for watching.